Sexy Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Shripad Bhagavatamsa Parivajagacharya Asasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Nata Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Premsika Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopina Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Yamuna Devi Ki Gamana Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Vrindavan Ki Mayanam Ki Sankirtanya Ki Nandi All glories to Samudra All glories to Samudra All glories to Samudra All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Glories to Shri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Text 57. Ya Sarvatra Anabhishneha Ya Sarvatra Anabhishnehas Tat Prapya Shubham Tat Prapya Shubham Navinandati Navinandati Nadreshti Tasya Pragya Pratishtita Tasya Pragya Pratishtita Ya Sarvatra Vishnehas Tat Prapya Subhashubham Navinandati Nadreshti Tasya Pragya Pratishtita. Please chant.
Ya Sarvatra Vishnehas
Sarvatra Vishnehas
Tat Prapya Subhashubham Navinandati Nadreshti Tasya Pragya Pratishtita.
Ya Sarvatana Visnehas
Sarvatra Vishnehas
Tat Prapya Subhashubham
Tat Prapya Subhashubham Navinandati Nadreshti
Tasya Pragya Pratishtita
Ya Sarvatra
Ya Sarvatana Vishnehas Tat Prapya Subhashubham Navinandati Nadreshti Tasya Pragya Pratishtita.
Ya one who Sarvatra everywhere Anabhishneha without affection Tat that Prapya achieving Shubha good Ashubam,
Ashubam,
evil.
evil.
Na,
Na,
never.
never.
Abhinandati,
Abhinandati,
praises.
praise.
Na,
Na,
never.
never.
Drishti,
Destiny,
envies.
envies.
Tasya,
Tasya,
his.
his.
Pragya,
Pragya,
perfect knowledge.
perfect knowledge.
Pratishta,
Pratishthita,
fixed. Translation. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Please repeat. In the material world,
in the material world,
one who is unaffected
one who is unaffected
by whatever good or evil he may
by
obtain,
whatever good or evil,
neither praising it nor despising it,
neither praising it nor despising it,
is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil, because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil, because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called technically samadhi. Om Jnana Timarandasya Janaduna Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. We have here several verses before this one, preceding, leading up to this, because Krishna was instructing Arjuna to be fixed in yoga. So Arjuna wants to know, okay, well, how do I know to be fixed in yoga? What are the symptoms of one? How does he sit? How does he speak? What is his language? So he's inquiring, and now the Lord is replying. And there are so many verses similar to this, leading up to this, and then after this as well, about being steady and being fixed and not being affected by the dualities of the material world. So I found it interesting that Prabhupada's using this word evil, because evil seems like such a very strong word. And, generally we would say good and bad, or, good and not pleasing and not pleasing, but good and evil. And here it's speaking about being equipoised, being not neither praising nor despising. And because if you think about it, once I read this, then I started to notice the evil, like just in our everyday occurrences. Like we could just think of things that, like I say, evil's a little strong, but think the upheavals of the world, especially in India, and even in the Dham, we experience upheavals. In other words, things are not going the way we planned for them to go, or the way that we hoped they would go. So it's an upheaval. Now, has anyone had an upheaval in the last few days, would you say?
Last few minutes?
Yeah, or a few minutes, or a last hour. Anyone like to share some of their upheavals? Well, one upheaval is the body. Like, especially as you get older, it's like a balancing act. Like this whole chapter is a balancing act. Being, performing your prescribed duties, being enthusiastic, and at the same time
not being affected. Now, not being affected does not mean that one is callous and that one doesn't care. So, so just for upheavals, like first of all, like health, trying to keep healthy. Sometimes it's an upheaval, isn't it? Because you're trying and you're doing so many things and taking supplements and exercising and eating the proper diet, and then you think, okay, now I'm getting better. You know, one part of the body that may have been ailing you starts to feel better. Then another part starts giving us trouble. So there's always an upheaval with the body. And then if anyone ever takes a rickshaw to Loy Bazaar, it's upheaval because the road is very bumpy. And you think, why don't they all chip in? But you know, it's just the Western logic. All the rickshawwallas chip in and fix the roads. You know, how much would it cost for some cement, right? And then there wouldn't be all of that upheaval. And then, you know, we all want to have loving relationships, right? But sometimes in loving relationships, there may be some agitation or some upheaval. And, you know, and it disturbs the mind, that kind of thing. Now, also, we can see that there's some things that are very clearly evil, because the evil I'm speaking about, it's really due to a personal perspective, right? Like you see here many sadhus who really have almost no concern for their body. And you think they're probably not terribly healthy, especially, you know, they just eat what's available and have only, you know, a chudder and a bowl and no possessions. And, you know, for them though, for that renunciation, for them it's maybe pleasing. But for us it would be quite an upheaval to have to live in such severe, austere conditions. So it's rather, you know, personally, like relative to our, you could say, needs. And even like brahmachari, right? Many brahmacharis, it's very pleasing. They think, this is such a nice life, so simple, no entanglement, no, you know, financial expenses, and can devote my time to study and chanting. But then again, a grihastha may think, that's horrible, just horrible life, you know, just to be all alone and you know, just kind of, I guess, kind of on your own, that only depending on Krishna, not having others to look after you or to help you out. And then, you know, well, you could just think of varnashram. There's the varnashram right there that is all relative, right, to one's psychophysical nature, the stage in life, his age, you know, what will be good and what will be evil. So if one is out of sync with that. So this is what Krishna is explaining, that you see it. Now, like I've heard of some evil here in Vrindavan, like just last week, right? Some people went to the Goshal, our Goshal, and at gunpoint stole 3 cows, you know, where no one could, I mean, you could stop them if you wanted to risk your life. And they have been known to kill people who obstructed them. So this clearly is evil, isn't it? But what do we do? He's saying here, we neither praise it nor despise it. But you know, we still, like I say, we're not callous. So according to the scriptures, that's how we can ascertain. It's not really a relative thing, because the cows are very dear to Krishna. And so that's, you know, that is clearly an evil thing, and we would want to do something to prevent that. Really, I can still talk? All right.
Put it in, don't chew it.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go, I can still talk. Okay, so now, you know, today, who heard this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class? Okay. Well, it was all about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam by Hanumat Prasak Maharaj. And, you know, the glorious Bhagavatam, right in the very, very beginning, the sages, right, Shonaka Rishi, Sutta Goswami, Shonaka's asking, okay, you're going to have 1,000-year sacrifice. Now, what is he asking? Like Prabhupada, you know, he mentioned in class today too how we don't proceed past the second canto if we are still attached to gross sex life. But right in the very beginning, when there's those 6 questions, what's their main concern? They're like, now you, Sutta Goswami, you have been blessed by your gurus, and you're endowed with all good qualities, and you have studied the scriptures scrutinizingly. So tell us, what is the best thing? This is what they want to know. Not, you know, like to be equilibrium, we think, all right, let me just hear the pastimes of Krishna. Don't tell me about those cows and the other suffering that's going on. But, you know, but they didn't ask right away, just tell me the pastimes of Krishna. Very beginning, one of their first questions, they said, you have been blessed with many years, so explain to us in an easily understandable way, because it's the beginning of Kali Yuga, what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general. And so we see that the glorious Bhagavatam is beginning in this way, that they want to know what is the best thing for the people in general, like so much concern, because the saintly people are always thinking of the suffering of humanity and how that suffering can be mitigated. And so that's their question, because the very famous next verse, Prayeno Payushu Shapya Kalavasmin Yuge Janaha Mandartu Mandar Matayo Mandabhagya Hupadrutaha. Because, O learned one, in this age of Kali, men are almost always have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So, again, the devotees are very much concerned about this, that the people are disturbed because there's these upheavals all the time. And later on they say, even here Krishna is saying to Arjuna, cast aside all abominable activities, you know, and be situated in yoga, even though you're going to be fighting in a battle. Be situated in yoga, and this way you will rise above those influences, the lower influences of the modes. So here they're saying that devotional service, that, and especially this process of hearing, that can mitigate all of these upheavals, these disturbances. But the mass of people do not know this. So how are the mass of people going to come to know it? Like how? What do you think? Who can say? Yes, Harinam. And also to know that they can actually you know, be free of this suffering. But, you know, like Harinam or distributing books and meeting people, it takes the intervention of a devotee. Like, one doesn't come to the lotus feet of Krishna, even if one had been there before in previous lives, or even in this life and somehow forgot. One doesn't come without that intervention, without that mercy of a devotee. So devotees are compassionate, and then they want to, you know, to like intervene in that. When you see, you know, somebody going off a cliff, you know, you want to intervene, and then devotees, like here, we're meant to be firmly fixed in perfect knowledge and equipoised, but we always have a kind of anxiety for suffering, but also the anxiety that, what am I doing? I am not doing nearly enough. Like each of us should feel that kind of anxiety and pray that we can somehow be empowered. Like Damodar Swami was speaking about also inner cultivation, how that's so important. Not that we're only concerned with saving humanity, that we neglect our own inner cultivation and our own sadhana and our own learning of the scriptures and cultivating Vaishnava relationships. So that's essential as well. But then this intervention that, what can I do? And there's many different novel ways to share Krishna consciousness with others. And somehow to like catch on, link on, maybe join another program where people are doing that, where others are distributing Krishna consciousness. Like many devotees think that they don't know, like say distributing books, they say, I don't know what to say if the person asks me a question, or but even the newest devotee knows so much more, because we know that we're servant of Krishna, and no need to be intimidated. Like one thing, like Bhakti Siddhanta's mission, that was his mission, preaching, and everyone going out and not just being sadhus in the ashram as it was previously, but going. And one nice thing was they would leave early for Sankirtan, door to door book distribution, and they would come back for lunch. They would leave at 7:30 and then come back at about noon, and then every day at every month there was an istagosti in the after lunch, at about 2 o'clock or something like that. Now, when we have istagostis, they've kind of denigrated to, where are we going to keep the shoes and the plates and, I don't know, just logistics of running an institution, which is also necessary to be organized in order to receive our guest, Krishna's guest. But their istagostis were all philosophical. So imagine you go out, like I was saying, people think, I won't know what to say. But then, if they didn't know what to say, because even many like illiterate young men even join, and from farmer boys, but they would say, I will get back to you tomorrow. And when you go door to door, you know where to go back, unlike the street where you may not meet someone again. And then at the istagosti, all the preachers could bring up their questions that were posed to them. And maybe they did answer it, but they'd like to have another angle of vision. So whenever Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was present, he would lead that istagosti. And at all the other temples, because there were 64 mats, so whoever was the senior devotee, if there was a visiting sannyasi, they would lead it, or whoever was senior. And I thought, wow, that is like really like dynamic, to just stay right in the front of the preaching mission, and to always be ready with arsenal, to answer anybody's questions. And they had an awful lot of opposition, an awful lot of bogus philosophies floating around at that time. And so it was a very potent form of learning philosophy. But Bhakti Siddhanta used to speak, his lectures were at least 2 hours long, and often 3 or 4, and hardly any lila, almost no lila, just pure philosophy. And some of the men, like I said, even like farmer boys, just by hearing him, they would, and he spoke in different languages, and he wrote in different languages, you know, in English, in Hindi, Bengali, Oriya, Assam, and he would speak, and some of these boys, they learned English just by hearing him speak. And then when they went and spoke, people thought surely they're college graduates, when just, you know, a year before they were totally illiterate and just barely knew Bengali, you know, their own language. So such was the potency of his preaching in that way. So does everybody feel some compunction in their heart that I mean, because I know I'm certainly not doing even a drop of what I could be doing or should be doing. Does anyone else feel that way? Like how you would like to contribute more to the Sankirtan movement? Yeah, so we can. All right, now back to my original question, because she just said about an upheaval. Let's hear some more upheavals in this world. What are some more upheavals that you experience? Like, you know, just in a day-to-day existence. What can be some upheavals? Maybe not you personally, but people that you know, devotees that you know, or people out there, you know, in the world.
Somebody want to explain it, and I'll hear it.
What?
I'll start.
Okay, you'll
I've
start.
got plenty of them.
Yes. Good and evil ones. I don't know. Does anyone like to suggest how there's a good upheaval?
Good of people.
Yeah, good upheaval.
Well, I have found that sometimes people like to ask me for advice, but then they have a very low tolerance for my help.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I'm sure other people have had the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the whole interchange becomes very aggravated, and I just simply have to wait until the person calms down, and then come back after an hour and have another conversation.
Yeah, and because perhaps your expectations are too high, maybe. You know, like we can
Well,
give
also
advice.
people who ask for advice, very
Yeah.
often they have their own idea of
Right.
what should be, and then they hear something which doesn't mesh with that.
Right.
Then it's very difficult for them to digest that.
Right, and then they may find another devotee who will tell them what they want to hear. But still, you know, the thing is that our expectations, when our expectations are too high, then always we'll be disappointed in every aspect of life. Like say, you know, you go to the prasadam hall and you're expecting certain kind of prasadam that's going to be really, you know, delicious. And then it's not, especially for Westerners, it might be too spicy or too oily, and then you're disappointed. But that's just one example. But if our expectations are minimal, you know, like that, going in this world and accepting my lot, what's due to me, and being as satisfied as possible with what's available and not expecting so much, then how much we will not be disappointed and we'll be satisfied because we didn't expect so much. Not only satisfied, we may even feel grateful. So if we're grateful for the situation, and like I have this new slogan that I've been saying, I've only been here Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so 5 days. And I used to think, oh, how horrible that you take a birth as a monkey, a dog, or a turtle, and then you could go back to Godhead. And I used to think, oh, that's so horrible. I don't know if I would want to do that. But now, Now things are different because on the street even people are buying food for 50 rupees. You can buy from the vegetable wallas, some greens for the street cows. But I have chronic cough. So whenever I cough and when I see the animals, I say small price to pay. It's just a small price, if there can be purification. And for the animals to go back to Godhead, even though it's bewildering like anything, because, they're not engaging in sadhana. And today one of the monkeys broke the tulsi plant where I'm staying. And I asked Karta, I said, they are so cute, aren't they, the monkeys? I think they're so cute. She said, I used to think that, but after being here for 20 years, I have no compassion for them because they're such rascals, But anyway, small price to pay. And sometimes I think, like they're in the MBT and they're always chasing them away. And I think some of those monkeys may have been ISKCON devotees in a previous life, and they were Sankirtan devotees. And in the old days, we used to say every book is a brick, because for every book we distributed, a percentage would go to India to help build the temples. So every book was a brick. And I think some of them may have been like that, book distributors who contributed greatly to the Krishna Balaram Mandir, and now they're being chased away. And they're like, who are you? We helped build this place. And not only that, they're used to being chased away, because in our Sankirtan endeavors, often we're not welcome. Like the Radha Damodar party, there's one story in volume 2 of Radha Damodar Vilas, how the devotees went, Guru Maharaj Ji, he had a big convention in Texas. I believe it was in Houston. There was a big convention, so all the devotees went, the Radha Damodar boys in vans, and they went there and distributed books in the lot as people were going in. And they went to all the hotels because it was a big convention and many people had come. And people thought they must be part of the convention, they're part, and they're coming around distributing the books to help facilitate the greatest benefit of attending this conference. And anyway, the organizers called the police on them, and then the devotees, they all would go in their vans, but then they just had a big harinam, and they called the press and said, we're going to go in there and have a harinam. And then the press came and filmed them being arrested, and it was on the news that the Maharajis, who are spiritualists, Eastern philosophy, they had the Hare Krishnas arrested. And it was so, like just how devotees would do things like that, and then people would think, how appalling, And then their leader, organizer, went on and said, no, we didn't do that, he lied. But anyway, the evidence was there, and the police just threw it out, like released the devotees right away because he denied it. But devotees were accustomed to going anywhere and everywhere. And the Radha Damodar parties in those days, because Prabhupada, you heard in the class recently, maybe Drista or said, like how we would just do anything Prabhupada asked, like stand on your head and spit wooden nickels, Whatever Prabhupada asked, we would do it, no questions. I mean, it was the middle of the anti-war movement, and here we are distributing Bhagavad Gita about a war, and everything. But the Radha Damodar party, just how it engaged, there were how many buses? 6 or 7? 8 buses, filled with young men, and Vishnu Jan Swami and Tamal Krishna Maharaj and many others. They just would stop at colleges, set up their altar, their portable altar, and have kirtan, and then half the men would go out on Sankirtan distributing books to the various parking lots and things, and then others there would distribute at the college and have kirtan. But some men, they just would be walking. This actually would happen. They're walking to their next class and they're just mesmerized by the Harinam. And then they had a strategy, right? That Vishnujana Swami would chant, and then Tamal Krishna Maharaj would say, "Come have a seat," and just preach to them. And some of them didn't even go to their next class. They just would go right on the bus and join the Radha Damodar party because it was so attractive. And others may have said, let me just finish, this term, and then they joined them after, things like that, those who were more rational. But there was, this great spirit of going everywhere. And then, that was very blissful, wasn't it? Always chanting, doing college programs. But they had upheavals too, just like that, being chased by the police. And you may have heard one time they were staying at a campground and they're doing Mangal Arti, and somebody called the police, and the police came and said, somebody said that you have 2 young children tied up in the back of your bus and you're burning them, because they had seen through the window deities and they're doing arti with the ghee lamp, and you're trying to burn 2 young children. And so they had, and then one time they're on their bus and something happened, like something caught on fire outside, and then, and Vishnujana Swami's worshipping the deities and everyone's going on, then eventually they smell smoke, and then they look and the bus is on fire, so they stop and they all get out, and then at the back door Vishnujana Swami and with some helpers brought out the deities, set up their altar on the roadside, and then one devotee said, the Lakshmi, they had just come from the BBT, the whole bottom of the bus, the bay, was filled with books, and then their collection. He said, the Lakshmi's there, and one devotee crawled on, but all the coins were sweltering hot, like melting. He couldn't get the Lakshmi. And then luckily, one devotee said, just like in a nick of time, why don't we, because they're all just watching the bus burning down, and then he says, one devotee says, I think we should move back a little. And as soon as he said that, they moved back, and flames shot out of the gas tank right where they were standing. And then Vishnujana Swami just started crying and watching his deity's temple burn to the ground. And some of the men just had on a gumsha, and because they were just traveling. They're all, imagine the sight, they're just standing on the side of the freeway with their bus burning down, and what a sight, saffron and gumshas and all of that. So again, there was this, this great missionary spirit, and sometimes we can become a little complacent because now we have lots of Indian congregation, and I don't know, somehow it's filled up, our temples, and we don't perhaps feel the urgency. But like here in Vrindavan, there's so many Westerners coming too, and it's mentioned here when the great sages were saying, people are unlucky, misguided. So that's the thing that Prabhupada said, due to misuse of education, even if someone is inquisitive about spiritual life, then they're going to be misguided. They're going to meet a teacher or a guru who will not give them the absolute truth and the highest, most perfect process of self-realization. And so that's why they're unfortunate as well, because how rare it is to actually receive the topmost transcendental knowledge in that way. And so again, we any other upheavals? Yes? Oh, he has an upheaval or something like that.
Well, I think it's interesting the way that the verse says, prapya subhashubham. It says achieving shubha, good, and ashubham, evil, and that these both good and evil are upheavals, because the conditioned soul in this material world gets either really elated or really bummed out by something happening. You know, there's a story about someone who wins the lottery, and they're completely elated, but later on, that their life is so messed up by having extra money, and they all of a sudden have extra friends they never had before, and family members fighting over the money, that there's complete distress coming from that. So that, you know, in this material world, we're being affected by things that make us really happy, and they're temporary, and not even that good.